Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining the alphabet in games. So this is the second time that I've played the alphabet in games. That means I've started at A, which is down here, and I've gone through the entire alphabet as a first letter all the way to Z. There's a couple of titles, if you've watched my videos for a while, you'll notice that there's a couple of titles here that appear twice, as in they appeared last time I did my alphabet in games, they appeared this time I did my alphabet in games. Those ones are Zombie Dice, Yamatai, Underwater Cities. Other than those three, I believe that I actually have at least 2 games in each of the letters of the alphabet. Let's talk about a few of them. The first one I would like to talk about is Istanbul. So with Istanbul, I played this time with both of the expansions. And it's the first time I've actually managed to use any expansion on Istanbul. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of having to go back into rulebooks and work out which expansion's that card, that tile from, so what does that do? But getting used to that is kind of the first objective with the whole usage of expansions on this game. The biggest benefit I noticed was that the size of the board grew substantially. I think it became a 5x5 from memory, with tiles all around the place, and that changes how you approach the game. You could have the expansion stuff in there and still play the base game, but it takes a little bit further to get to the things. Whereas some of the expansion stuff allows you to get some extra gems, because the essence of the game is once you've got a certain number of gems, you finish the game, you've won, if you got there first. So some of the stuff in the expansion obviously helps you get gems at different ways. But what it does is it takes this base game here and goes, okay, you've got this many gems in this base game. When we add expansion, there's a couple more spots where you can get gems. And so it means that you don't need to go after all of these same spots. You can just go after the expansion gems as well, or instead of, should I say, instead of some of the other gems. Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle is the next one I'd like to talk about. What I noticed is the first many times I played this game, we got through it. We got through it relatively easily. I think we only had to play one of the games twice from memory. I may be wrong on that, but that was the base game. With the expansion stuff, I'm stuck on like the third game. Every time it's come off, we've had to play that third game again, and we have not achieved it. The issue is that the deck of cards that you are able to purchase from, so it's a deck building game. You've got 5 cards in front of you that can do stuff, and however many things you can purchase with that, that's what you can purchase off the board. But there's only like 6 of them available. The problem is if all 6 of them become available as higher valued things, it's next to impossible to actually purchase them. And so I found that in the last few games, we haven't been able to move forward simply because there's a whole bunch of these higher valued cards all stacked together that need to be distributed a bit better through the deck, so that you're always able to purchase something. Because the purchasing of the something is what's going to get you to the ability to purchase this big stuff. And if you're unable to purchase any new cards, you're not going to be able to knock over the enemies coming against you anywhere near as quickly. And so therefore you're losing a heck of a lot of life to those guys really early on. I'm assuming there is a workaround. I haven't found one, but I also haven't gone looking for one specifically. So I'm assuming there is a workaround with that if that eventuates. But that's just something I've noticed with Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. It's a good game, don't misunderstand, but the really dense, thick deck gets really hard to actually find your way through.
Rajas of the Ganges.
Okay, so Rajas of the Ganges, this is the first time my wife has won this game. I'm really happy that she won the game, by the way, don't misunderstand me. I have found that there is a definite way through this game. There's a definite path to travel. I found that this time I started trying to focus on the other end of the path. So the idea of the game is that you're building up your money and your finesse, your I don't even know what they're called, but you kind of your goodness, I guess. And so once those two paths cross each other, once your counters cross each other, that's the end of the game. Whoever's crossed the furthest wins. And so what I found is I focused on this path more than the money path, and that didn't do me anywhere near as well as my wife, who was focused on getting the money, and she was able to get some really good value stuff. And and work really well with that. So this is an interesting game. I really like it, but you've got to understand what you're doing and keep traveling after whichever direction you're wishing to go for. And I'm going to suggest money is possibly the right way to go. My Village. Now this is a really interesting one because I played it to do the Gamesplaination a long time ago, but then it's kind of drifted into the background. There is another version called Village, which is the base game, is the original version. My Village is supposed to be a card version of the game, and what I found is it takes up more space than the base version. And generally what I find with card versions of games when we're trying to when we're getting them is we want a game that has a similar thing happening in it but doesn't take up anywhere near as much real estate on the table so that you can play it relatively quickly. This one, it takes up more space, and so I find that it's harder to get this to the table than Village, and I think Village is actually a better game than My Village, to be 100% honest with you. That's just in my personal playing styles, but it's something to think about, that My Village does take up a heck of a lot of space, whereas Village, it just sits on the table and that's fine. It's like a regular board game size space. Next up, Kingdom Builder. So Kingdom Builder is a really interesting one. It won the Spiel in the year that it came out, which was 2012. So it's quite an old game now. It's almost 10 years old. But what I find is there's two camps of people who really like the game and people who really dislike it, and find that they're just kind of forced into positions. The people who really like it generally will look at the positions they're going to be forced into and work towards that, and work towards not being backed into a corner of having to take this spot, to giving themselves some options where possible. And that's really the key to this game, is knowing what cards, what's going to score at the end of the game, building towards that type of stuff. Once again, this is one of those games that I included a lot of expansion material in, and I found it played just as well as the non-expansion material, and it just adds extra stuff and extra ways to get around it. But the essence of this game is so simple that it feels like you're being forced into corners, but the thought process on it is to manipulate the game in such a way that you know what's going to happen, so build towards forcing something else to happen, I guess. And that's kind of the key to the game. I think that people who dislike it got caught into a little space on their first game and just kind of were stuck there, whereas people who actually like it have been able to think through the process, and generally on their second play will play it a lot better than their first. Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Week. This game, it kind of came as a little bit of a surprise to me. I've just recently done the Gamesplainer of this one, and so you can look back at that and see what's going on with the whole game. But the feel of the game is that it's going to be a war game, but the actuality of it is it's a worker placement game. And as soon as you can get your head around that, it's a lot easier to kind of grasp and move around. I found that I really enjoyed this a whole bunch more than I expected to. And my wife really enjoyed her play of it as well, a lot more than she was expecting to. I was 100% convinced that it was going to be one of these games that I just can't push through. Let's just play it and get it out of the way so I can do a Gamesplainer of. But I actually really enjoyed it, so I think I'm going to try and pull this back to the table as soon as I can, with other people as well, as soon as I'm able to get to play with some other people. So that's Tidal Blades. It's such a good essence of a game, and just, it looks like one thing, it feels like something totally different. So just beware of that if you're looking into it. Vinyos. What would this list be without at least one Vita Lasada? In fact, what would any of my lists be without at least one Vita Lasada game happening within their midst? I really enjoy this one. I think it's such a wonderful game. My wife really enjoys this as well. Not quite as much as, say, the Gallerist or Lisboa, but she still enjoys this one. And it's got enough going on that you constantly have to think, oh, what do I want to do? How can I get that to happen? Of course, the essence of the game is there's a little space of 9 options of things that you can do, and doing them in the right order, because you can only move from one to the very next thing, so kind of going to adjacency. So if you find yourself in the bottom corner, you've only got 3, but the middle one is not really an option, so you've only got 2 to choose from. If you're here, then you've got 1, 2, 3, you've got 4 to choose from, plus the middle spot. So thinking about not just what do I want to do on this turn, but what do I want to do in future turns, so where do I want to end up, is actually a really important part of this game. Of course, you can always move to further away, but it's going to cost you. And money is a rarity in this game. And so it's one of those things you just kind of continually pushing the boundaries of, oh, what can I do? How can I get some money? What can I do for that? And I've played this on the 2016 rules. There is the original version rules in this box as well. I have played them as well, but I generally play with the 2016 rules. The other version actually has a bank, so you can go to the bank and put money in or take money out and work to get money that way. But you lose a lot of turns by doing that too often. I just find that the structure of this version of the game just works a bit better and makes you think a heck of a lot harder about how to do stuff and how to manipulate what's in front of you to be able to do the stuff. XNIMT. X is the only game within my entire alphabet that last time I did it, I was like, I really don't enjoy that game. So I bought XNIMT purely so I could do the alphabet again without having to touch on that game. Of course, that's the other one that was going to be stuck in the having to do this game again. And I really didn't enjoy it. I'm not saying which game it is very deliberately, but you can always look back at my other alphabet in gaming to find out which game I'm talking about. But XNIMT, it's a fun little game. It's based on 6NIMT. So if you've played 6NIMT before, then this is pretty close on the same game, but it's a 2 to 4 player game, and it has a little extra element of, I have this many cards I'm going to play out. When I play a card out that has to take a pile in, I'm taking the pile in, but I'm taking one of the cards out of that pile and putting it into another row, the X row, I think they call it. The others go into my hand. So you're actually continually circling the cards into and out of your hand. If your X row has to go back on itself, so say you've got 2, 10, 12, 27, 43, if you have to put in something lower than 43 into that line, then you've moved backwards. So the entire line then comes across to be scored. And at the end of the round, any cards that have come out of that X row and any cards in your hand, I believe that the cards that have come out of your X row are worth double the points than the ones in your hand, but there's still a lot of scoring on there. This game only goes for 2 rounds. It just lives on the table really nicely. I actually quite like the slight change on how to play over 6NIMT. But 6NIMT is a better game with a larger group, obviously. But if you're in that kind of space and you're wanting to play a smaller game, XNIMT is possibly the way to go. Look, I think I'll leave it there. That's my alphabet once again. So please go ahead and write your comments below if there's any games here that you like the look of. I believe that I've done games plans for all of them. I at least hope I have. So please have a look back for them and see what you can do with that. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.